Well, folks, BounceBack. This is a product that doesn't get talked about a great deal, and I'm sorry about that because it is one of our truly excellent products. All of our products are great, but there are some of the products that are just especially noteworthy about what they have been validated to do in scientific study, and BounceBack is one of these products. Let me say a few things about the regulatory environment first before I get started. I think this is very, very important. Some of you are tuning in because you want specific product information, and that is the primary purpose of these training calls. But some of you are also building businesses in various countries. So I want to tell you that BounceBack is one of those products where you have to be aware of the regulations in each country because they're different. And sometimes they're very different. For instance, you in Australasia have a tremendous advantage over the US with the product BounceBack because of what you're allowed to say versus what you're allowed to say in the US. This came to my attention when I was doing a training call for the Canadians. On the Canadian BounceBack label, it actually has the word inflammation. It says that this is used for inflammation. In the US, you are not permitted to say the word inflammation in conjunction with the sale of dietary supplements. So this product is our anti-inflammatory product. And how do people in the US sell this product? Now, I'm just not even sure. I'm going to give you a couple of clues of things that might work for you if you're talking with Americans. But in Canada, it's okay to talk about inflammation. And in Australasia, it's right on your printed information, your approved information in Australasia. You have a tremendous benefit in that you're actually allowed to talk about what the product was designed to do, because this product was specifically made for inflammation. Now, if you're talking to an American, if you're talking to anybody for that matter, you might want to use a term called DOMS. You will see this expressed in capital letters, D-O-M-S, DOMS. And what that stands for is delayed onset muscle soreness. Now, delayed onset muscle soreness occurs, and I'll say this to you as a scientist, and then we'll just say it in English, okay? Post-eccentric exercise. So what that means is after you've exercised way too much to the point of fanaticism. So what we say when it's way too much in science, we call it eccentric. So it's post-eccentric exercise. You've exercised too darn much and you made those muscles really sore. Now, what almost always happens when you do far too much physical activity, doesn't matter what it is, when you do more than what your muscles are used to on a normal daily basis, what typically occurs is DOMS. So that you will notice that it typically doesn't happen the same day, but rather the soreness in your muscles starts the next day, sometimes 2 days after, and in some very rare cases, even 3 days after the exercise or physical activity. So you can use the term DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. You can use that term in any country, and you don't have to worry about the regulations for that. But when it comes to inflammation, since we are in 26 countries, I would strongly recommend that you check the rules in those countries before you talk to somebody about BounceBack in those countries, and don't talk about inflammation in the US. It's simply not permitted anymore. So that's bizarre to me. You know, I'm always marveling about country regulators, all these legal people in government. I'm just marveling because as a scientist, I just want to know several important things. I want to know, number one, is the product safe? Number two, is it effective? And number three, is it scientifically validated to be safe and effective? As a scientist, this is all I want to know. But different countries have different rules. You can say this, you can't say that, and Oh my gosh. Okay, so in Australasia, you can say inflammation, so I'm just going to enjoy the heck out of this because I'm going to be able to talk about what this product is actually designed to do. And we spent a lot of work designing this product. This is a product which is very effective, proven in scientific study. In fact, 2 human scientific studies where we have validated both the safety and the efficacy of this product for DOMS and general inflammation and pain, which is related to eccentric exercise, okay? And just general anti-inflammatory effects as well. There are other benefits to this product as well. There are antioxidant benefits. So there's quite a list of benefits here. And this is a product that I think, you know, if you're not used to being very physically active, you should keep this product around. If you have some kind of an inflammatory health issue, you may want to strongly consider using BounceBack as directed. I'll talk about that more in a moment. That's very, very, very important to use it as directed and to use it daily, every day. Just as probably most everyone on this call is taking their Ambertose every day, you should be taking your BounceBack every day as well. Now it says on the label, the directions say that you should be taking this product on, quote, an empty stomach, unquote. And the label further reads that you should take this product 45 minutes before or 2 hours after eating. Now, the reason for this is that there's a general, it's generally accepted that the average person has a sort of average digestion rate. Now, for the average person, the stomach is going to empty out within about 2 hours after eating. Now, there can be exceptions to that, of course. But for the average person, that's what you have. For some people, it'll be a little bit faster, a little bit slower, but 45 minutes before eating or 2 hours after eating. Okay? Now, the reason for this is because there are proteolytic enzymes in this product. The proteolytic enzymes are there because of the curcumin, or it is in some countries expressed as turmeric, and in some places expressed as curcuminoids. So with this in mind, in order for you to utilize turmeric or curcumin or curcuminoids, for you to actually utilize that, you need to have enzymes to break it down. If you don't, then there is no possibility that you are going to be able to absorb or utilize the turmeric or curcuminoids. A lot of people think that, you know, just anything that's plant material that every human can digest and it's not a big deal, but this is simply not true. We know this in science. So for some plant materials, there are huge benefits, but you need to take steps in order to digest that plant material so you can have those benefits. And with this in mind, we've added the proteolytics. So what is a proteolytic? A proteolytic enzyme is an enzyme which is designed and it functions. It isn't just designed. It functions to digest any kinds of proteins. Now, here's the problem. If you take curcumin or curcuminoids or turmeric, if you take those and you don't have the presence of certain proteolytic enzymes, that stuff is just going to pass right through your system. You're not going to utilize any of it. And with this in mind, We've added these proteolytics so that you can utilize it. However, proteolytic enzymes will digest any protein in its path. That's the problem. That's why we've got the warning on there about take it 45 minutes before or 2 hours after. If there's any protein in your stomach when you take BounceBack, those proteolytics will immediately want to eat or digest the protein that's in your stomach. And in order for you to work on inflammation in your muscles, in your joints, in connective tissue, for you to work on that inflammation, you have to have these enzymes, you have to have the curcuminoid, I should say, go systemic. If it can't go systemic, that is, go throughout your system, go beyond your stomach and into your bloodstream, okay, when I say systemic, if you don't do that, then you're not going to get the anti-inflammatory benefits of the curcuminoid, turmeric, curcumin, however it's listed in various countries. Now, one of the things that comes up, not super frequently, but periodically for me, is when competitors will put out products that have, let's say, 500 milligrams of turmeric or curcuminoids in a capsule. And then the associate will say to me, oh, but this other company is better because we only have 200 milligrams and they have 500. Well, if you have filled a 500 milligram capsule with 500 milligrams of turmeric, you're going to get zero effect, except a change in your stool color. And the reason for that is because you've got to have these enzymes or you can't utilize the turmeric. As I say, there are some plant materials that human beings simply can't break down on their own. They need help, and this is one of them. Now, we know from the medicine of ancient India and the ancient Chinese practitioners, that both go back thousands of years, that curcumin was first used, or turmeric was first used as a spice and food coloring, but then it was discovered, and who knows how or who did it, there's no record to tell us that, it was discovered that there were tremendous anti-inflammatory properties and antioxidant properties as well. Well, this is pretty darn cool. So if you just have a product that has nothing in it except turmeric and the appropriate enzymes and the appropriate amount, you already have a really darn good product for working on inflammation, which is due to overexertion of your muscles, etc. And that's the way you're supposed to say it in virtually all the countries. So, first of all, make sure you take it as directed. Interestingly, our host for this call, of course, Sharon, is a naturalized Australian, but she's originally from Canada. And I think it's very interesting that the different rules up in Canada, the Canadian system that regulates our labels up there, they make us write on the label that you have to take this product with food. And the regular complaint I get from Canadians is the Canadian product doesn't work and the American product does work. It's the same product exactly, but you have to take it on an empty stomach. And the Canadian label, they force us to put on there that you have to take it with food. And of course, then it just doesn't work. So it's very, very interesting. So that's the drawback for BounceBack, that you have to take it on an empty stomach. These days, food is just too available. It's just too easy to get food. When I was a kid, everybody ate at specific times of the day, and snacking in between meals was specifically prohibited. And everybody'd get on your case if you did. But today, everybody just eats whenever they want, anything they want, and it's pretty hard to find times where your stomach is actually empty. But that's what you have to do to make this work. You're going to find out from your use, and we found out from our studies, that BounceBack has a cumulative effect. So your results, your anti-inflammatory results, are actually going to improve over time. As its effect begins to accumulate in your system, you're going to peak out, according to our scientific studies, you're going to peak out at somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 weeks. Now, that doesn't mean you begin to lose effect at that point. It means that you've peaked, you've reached the peak level of anti-inflammatory activity that you're going to get from this product. And it will stay that way as long as you are taking the product as directed. Now, typically, what's directed is 2 capsules a day. Could you do more? I'm asked that question all the time. The legal response from Mandakini is you must follow label directions. And are there people who have taken more and got better results? I've had reports of that, but I can't tell you, because I know you're gonna say, well, I've got this problem, that problem, and could I take more? Would it go faster? Or the way our studies were done was to do this sort of incrementally. So we have 2 studies on this product, and that's a great deal of expense as it is, human studies. And we're probably not going to have another study on this product to give you a different look on dosing. So right now, follow your label instructions. Okay, that's what we need to do with this. So on we go with more on this product. So the curcuminoids are super important. That's a really big part of this. Also in the product is something called resveratrol. Now, besides being hard to pronounce for most people don't know what this is, except those who have heard the occasional news story about the fact that there's an antioxidant in red wine that's actually good for your health, which is why people are encouraged by many practitioners around the world to have one glass of red wine per day. I chuckle because I remember the first time I talked about resveratrol in Australia. I was actually in Brisbane, and this could only happen in Australia. Your culture is so unique there. So I'm doing a lecture, and I mentioned resveratrol, and I mentioned to the group that this is found in red wine, and that it's very good for your health, and it is the primary reason why red wine is good for your health if you have 1 glass per day versus 1 bottle per day, okay? And one of the Australians yelled out from the audience, "How big's the glass, mate?" I only get that in Australia. And in fact, when I was doing that lecture, that same Australian left, when I told him it was 150 ml, he was quite disappointed, and he left the audience right away, and I thought I had offended him or something. He came back minutes later with a glass of red wine. It must have had 500 ml in this glass. It was just huge. And he handed it to me up on stage, and the audience encouraged me to drink it while I was doing the lecture. It is the first, last, and only time that I've consumed alcohol while doing a lecture, but it was fun. And people tell me that the lecture got better as I kept going. Who knows? Anyway, so what do we know about resveratrol? We know it's an antioxidant, and we know it's a darn good one. It's a very, very healthy one. We know that it's found only in the skin of the red grape, not in the meat of the red grape. But resveratrol is also found in a few other plants. One of those plants it's found in is something called japonica, and you will see japonica also listed on your Australasian label. You're not going to find a whole lot of information on japonica. In fact, there are different forms of japonica. Ours is Philopia japonica. You will find most of yours on other things. So a different way to look it up, because it's even hard to remember probably for some folks, you might remember it easier this way. It's also called Japanese knotweed, like tie a knot in a weed. Okay, so Japanese knotweed. And if you read botanical journals, you're going to see all kinds of terrible stuff like it's an invasive species and it's a nuisance and all that. Well, But, ancient practitioners doing Chinese medicine, they were testing every kind of plant they could find. We owe a lot to those ancient practitioners, and probably a lot to all the people that they practiced on. Because who knows what may have happened with some of those folks thousands of years ago. But the fact is, these ancient practitioners found that knotweed, although it may be a nuisance for a garden, it apparently is pretty healthy for humans. And that is primarily because of the resveratrol. Now, there's an overlap, folks. There's an overlap between various antioxidants and various anti-inflammatories. So that there are some things, a category which is called phenols or polyphenols. And these tend to be very good antioxidants, but also have anti-inflammatory effect. This tends to confuse some people because they'll look up on the internet, which seems to be what everybody does these days. Every time I mention something, they pick up their telephone, their smartphone in their hand, and they are on the internet looking stuff up while I'm talking, and that makes me crazy. But because they can look it up after I'm done. Okay, but people just do this all the time, and the problem with that, of course, is that if you're not a scientist, you, number one, may not know the most reputable places to get actual objective scientific information. That's the first thing. So generally, the pretty websites are not the reliable, dependable, objective websites. The pretty ones tend to be commercial in some way. Now, this is not always the case, of course, but it tends to be that way. So with this in mind, people will often get information that confuses them. And they may not know how to sort out the information when they go to a reliable, objective, scientific website, or may not be able to understand it. So with this in mind, we want to simplify this as much as we can. So there are a number of anti-inflammatory molecules in this product derived from different plant sources on purpose, because they all have very slightly different activities as it relates to inflammation. The reason that we can't talk about inflammation in the U.S. anymore is because of so many recent studies published in the U.S. which have made a direct correlation between virtually every kind of immune complaint and inflammation. And now the U.S. scientists are arguing with each other. Well, does the inflammation cause the immune problem, or does the immune problem cause the inflammation? Well, as they continue to argue with each other, all I care about as a practitioner is how do we help the body deal with inflammation in a safe and a natural and effective way. So what we're talking about is anti-inflammatory agents from very safe plant sources, and resveratrol obviously being one of the biggies. So the formula that you have in Australia does differ from the one that we have in the US and Canada. But again, those are country rules. And what happens here, and often I will get, especially in Australasia, I will often get associates who say, well, how come our formula isn't the same as the US, or is our formula as good as the US? Well, I don't know if you have this old saying in Australia or not, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. And for those of you who are cat lovers, that's just an expression, okay? I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings here. But there are different ways to solve a problem. You can go down different highways and still get to the same endpoint. That's one of the beauties of science today. So yes, we know that we can be as effective with the ingredients that Sharon just read off, what we have in the U.S. formula. In the U.S. formula, you'll see listed avocado and soy unsaphanopiobles. You'll see a couple of other things. But what we've done in your as soon as she read those to me, instantly, it all came back to me. So because I use Ambertose, and that's very good for your memory. So what we have going on here is a product that will definitely help you with inflammation. It definitely needs to be taken on an empty stomach, or you're pretty much going to negate basically the majority of the beneficial effects. You'll still get some antioxidant effect, out of this. But the purpose of the product really is inflammation. That's the whole point. We did 2 studies with human volunteers, and we did this at college campuses. We recruited college athletes. Why? Well, it's a known fact that the younger someone is, the more invincible they think they are. And they tend to, in terms of sports activities, be far more daring and far more reckless sometimes, plus the fact that they typically have more energy to expend anyway. So we thought college athletes would give us a much better look than professional athletes would. Professional athletes are concerned about their careers and their paychecks, and so I'm sure that they all do a great job on the field putting out, but the college kids will do a little bit harder usually. So that's why we did that. We tested them on pain indexes and inflammatory indexes. We also tested them on energy expenditure. And very, very interesting, what we found was that they expended more energy, the group that was tested with BounceBack versus the control group that did not get BounceBack. Why did they expend more energy? It's not that the product gives you more energy. It's because their muscles were recovering faster. Now, this study was done over time, so it wasn't a one-day look. This is how we know that you peak out at about 6 weeks. And what we saw is that because they recovered more quickly from eccentric exercise, okay, so crazy exercise, all right, because they recovered more quickly, they had less soreness. They were more likely to work even harder the next time and get back to work even faster the next time. Now, if you're an athlete, obviously this is ideal. This is perfect. This is the perfect product to support an athlete who really wants to go for it. Down there in Australasia, where you've got the rugby players, and I mean, rugby's a tough sport, that's for sure. And of course, there's a rugby league and all that sort of thing. I won't get into all that. But the point is, you've got some folks down there who could really benefit from BounceBack. Now, again, it's not going to work like a medication. If they're used to taking a medication and getting results within an hour or so, it's not the way this natural product works. So this has a cumulative effect over about a 6-week period, where most people will peak out around 6 weeks. And as long as you continue to take it as directed, you should continue to have that same level of results. The control groups of our college athletes absolutely loved this product. They could not wait to find out what the name of the product was, how they could get it, and so on. Of course, during a double-blind study, nobody knows what they're taking. Okay, so they didn't have that information. So inflammation, and think about that in a very broad general sense. Now, this is set up for muscle inflammation. But when your body becomes inflamed, and I have a very, very brief video in the US, I make these things called product focus videos. So it's super brief. And I sent a tag for that over to Sharon. And I'm sure that some of you may want to see that. Just click on the link. It'll take you right to it. It's probably, I don't know, 5 minutes, something like that. And I talked briefly about that. And that video hasn't been taken down yet. I'm sure it will be, because I actually talk about inflammation on that one. So it's a few years old. But it gives you a very, very good encapsulation, very quick 5-minute look at what this product can actually do for you, and why it does what it does. If you look up resveratrol, and I'm sure most of you will after this call, you're going to find all kinds of studies that don't seem on the surface to have anything to do with inflammation. Things about the heart and about the immune system and about blood sugar and so on. But folks, what you'll find out if you actually read those studies, don't just read the abstract, because that often is misleading. but actually read the whole darn study, you're going to see that the effects in all of those areas is all about inflammation. It's what it's all about. I love it that I can talk about this on this call. Absolutely love it. It's so hard for me to talk about this product in the United States, but you guys have got it made down there. So inflammation is the key. And the japonica I just talked about is one of them. The resveratrol, of course, is another big one. Sharon mentioned bromelain and, of course, the word protease. On some labels, you'll see a word peptidase, which is a sort of a different way of looking at breaking down proteins. So if this gets into your bloodstream, it can interact with proteins that are created when you do eccentric exercise. And these proteins, when they get into your blood, they actually cause inflammation. And that's how the muscles get sore and all that sort of thing. So the curcuminoid, or curcumin or turmeric, however it's listed in the various countries, has to get there, but the enzymes have to get there as well. The bromelain and also the protease enzymes, they all have to get there. They're proteolytic, simply means enzymes that break down protein or digest protein. That's all it means. You're also going to find references to resveratrol in terms of brain health, cognitive health, and so on. Those are not registered claims for Australia. And I should probably talk briefly about registered claims for those of you who are business builders. Just because a scientific study has shown that an ingredient will do this or that, that doesn't mean automatically that you have a claim just because a study proves it. Claims have to be filed for and approved by whatever the regulatory agency is in your country, and then we get the claims or we don't. And it doesn't always matter that you have a scientific study. So in the US, we originally had something like 42 claims, I think. After the inflammatory thing was taken off, then I guess we have 4 or 5 now. In Australia, I think you have 3 or 4, which are registered down there. So what I'm doing on this training call is I'm telling you what the ingredients can do. You're going to find it anyway. You're going to look it up anyway. But I want you to have it clear and accurate so that if you've gone to some website that has not properly informed you for whatever reason, or if there is something that you may not understand on a particular website, then on this call, you'll understand it. So I think that's like super important. All right, so I'm just looking at the Australasian approved benefits claims. You have may help reduce bruising, swelling, and inflammation from minor injuries. May help in recovery for overexertion or physical activity. Aid, assist, or help in the maintenance of good health and general well-being. Well, a lot of that is just encapsulated in what I've already just said. And of course, you've got the verbiage that's approved in Australasia versus the verbiage that we use in the US. But even on your literature, it talks about DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. And it talks about the benefits of the curcumin and the benefits of the resveratrol in particular, as well as Japanese knotweed and other antioxidant benefits. So you've got a pretty good air sheet on this. But the most important thing is you can talk about what the product actually does. Son of a gun. What a concept, huh? And I'm also looking at I've got the list of regulatory claims in front of me right now. I just pulled them up for Australia and New Zealand. And it also says, interestingly, approved claim supports sinus health, provides temporary relief from mild knee pain and stiffness. That's not on your marketing literature, but it's It's an approved claim. That's pretty good. I like that. May help relieve swelling after an injury or operation. Wow, that's pretty cool. You got good stuff approved in Australasia. Wow. Contains antioxidant resveratrol. And Mexican wild yam has traditionally been used in American folk medicine for the relief of muscular cramps and spasms. Wow, you've got great claims down there on this product. Right now, just as a result of what you've just been made aware of, this should help a whole lot of you to introduce BounceBack to a huge number of people. Now, I don't have the statistics at hand for Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. I can tell you in the United States, there are more than 50 million people in the U.S. that suffer from just one particular inflammatory disorder, just one. You've got, I don't know how many people there are in your three countries that can benefit from this product, but it's got to be a pretty huge percentage, especially with what I've just given you. And the reason that I looked up the regulatory stuff is because sometimes the marketing literature does not contain, and I don't know why. That's a marketing decision, okay? But wow, provides temporary relief from mild knee pain and stiffness. Ooh, I like that. That's really good. So here I am marveling over what you're allowed to say down there. I have claim envy for you folks in Australasia. Oh, well, what a great morning it is for you there.
Dr.
Okay.
Nugent, I'll just jump in there. There's a few questions, just if you can encompass
Sure.
bone and joint health as well in regards to the product.
Sure. I've read all of the claims that are approved for your countries. If I talk about anything beyond that, this would be in reference to some of the science out there, but it would not be claims that you can actually make in the sale of this product to anyone. So, joint health. When you have swelling in a joint, there are several things that are going on. Now, sometimes it's a result of post-eccentric exercise, okay? Sometimes that's a result. Sometimes it's other things. It can be related, as an example, to synovial fluid. And that's a sort of a lubricant, a lubricant that's found in your joints, okay, that helps those joints move without too much friction, if you will. Okay, I guess that's the easiest way to look at it. We do know that there is an assist by certain polyphenols and synovial fluid. I guess it'd be the best way I could say that. And you will find a variety of studies, probably a long list of studies on a lot of databases. And keep in mind, friends, that there isn't one scientific database for the world. There's a whole bunch of internet scientific databases. There's so many now that a computer would need a computer to keep track of them. I mean, it's astounding how fast scientific studies are being published around the world. I can't keep up with this stuff. It's too much, even for a computer to keep up with, really. So if you're used to consulting one database, for instance, Americans always go to a database called PubMed, which stands for public medicine or public medical. And because it's a U.S. company and U.S. associates were the original associates, they very often talk to their downlines about PubMed. But trust me, folks, there are many more scientific databases than PubMed. PubMed, last time I looked, had something like 14 million studies on it. But there are plenty of others. So you're going to look up and you're going to find in various places studies that relate to some of the ingredients in BounceBack and joint health. You will find a lot of studies out there that relate to inflammation, joint inflammation. Okay. However, the claims on the product are really about muscle pain and inflammation. And of course, those claims that I specifically read you, in fact, I'm going to read them again because I know how it is with audio. That probably just bypassed a lot of folks who were listening. So you have the claims that are on your, it's called a tear sheet, so your product sheet that is available to all the associates in Australasia. But I'm going to read you other regulatory approved claims for Australasia and New Zealand. So listen carefully. Provides temporary relief from mild knee pain and stiffness. Supports sinus health. May help reduce bruising, swelling, and inflammation from minor injuries. May help relieve swelling after an injury or operation. If you're going to recover from a wound, doesn't matter what the wound is, there's always swelling with a wound. The faster you reduce the inflammation, the faster you heal. So this is really important. This claim is super important. May help relieve swelling after an injury or operation. Contains antioxidant resveratrol. And then, of course, there's the statement about the Mexican wild yam that has been traditionally used for muscular cramps and spasms. Okay, so that's as far as bone health. No, there are a couple of ingredients that you may find associated with certain aspects of bone health, but I would not relate this product in that direction. If bone health is a concern, definitely you want to be using Catalyst in conjunction with whatever else you're doing. All right, and lastly, you folks can talk about inflammation. Oh my gosh. And that's what this product is actually designed for. That's what our two scientific studies, in fact, you can go onto a website, manatechscience.org, and you can look up those two studies. So go to manatechscience.org, and then there's a tab on top that says publications. Click on publications. That pulls down a list of all of our scientific studies, our papers, our scientific book chapters, all that is all on there. And you'll find two studies about BounceBack. Very good studies that validate that this product is a super excellent product for the purpose for which it was designed, okay, which again is primarily for inflammation. So it's right there. Now, you will probably not find anything on the website when you, on Manatech Science. If you go to BounceBack, you'll probably see one of these messages that says site under construction. And it's because our US people haven't figured out how to describe BounceBack without using the word inflammation in the United States. So there's just nothing there, okay? But you've got the whole deal. You know everything now. So this is very, very cool. Well, you folks have a great week down there in Australasia.